Hi guys, it is Mrs. Metter again. So we're going to finish up Unit 1 today by talking about environmental value systems. And environmental value systems are important for us to understand because it basically explains how a person views the environment. And you guys are going to try to identify basically where you fall in this scenario. Okay, so I want to start off with defining what an environmental value system is. All right, so an environmental value system is a worldview. Okay, it is a worldview that shapes how a person or society perceives environmental issues. All right, and there's a lot of things that go into this. We'll talk about those in just a second. So it is a worldview that shapes how a person or society perceives environmental issues. Okay. Now, let's take a deeper look into this. Okay. So, there are different ways that this is influenced. So, it can be influenced by your culture, by your religious views, by your economic status. There's a lot of different ways that an environmental value system can be created. Okay. So, we can say it is influenced by culture, so by cultural, religious, and economic views. And we know that there are a lot of different aspects to this. Okay, so a system is something that is going to have an input and an output. So an environmental value system is also going to have an input and an output. And you guys need to be able to specifically identify what these inputs and outputs are on the IB test. Okay? So an environmental value system, so we know that systems have inputs and outputs. Okay, so we're going to identify what these are specifically. Okay, so an input. So these are things that are obviously going to go in. So an input would be education. That's obviously going to shape your worldview. Your culture is an input, so how you're brought up, what your ethnicity is. Religion is going to be an input. And one that we see as a major input recently is media, specifically social media. And I'm just here to tell you guys, not everything you see on social media is correct. Okay, you've got to do your research to make sure that what you're actually reading is true. Okay. So those are our inputs. So what are the outputs of this? So once you have these four things right here as part of your upbringing, how is that going to shape your view as an adult? So this is what our output is. Okay? So this is going to influence our decisions. Does education influence a decision? Yes. Is culture? Yes. Is religion? Yes. All of these things. It also will influence our perspectives. So we obviously know that some people care more about the environment than others. And it also will influence our actions that we take. So actions taken. Would you be willing to go and, chain yourself to a tree to prevent it from being cut down? There are people out there that will do this, okay? So, the environmental value systems, we have different names for each level, okay? So, we always start in the center. So, in the center, we have what we call self-centered. Now, we just talked about the tragedy of the commons, and we know that humans are intrinsically selfish. So right here in the middle, I'm going to put parentheses, tragedy of the commons, okay? Now, when we step back from this, the first level is what we call technocentric. So technocentric. Okay, so this obviously is going to refer to technology. Okay, so this is basically an optimistic view of humans. That basically the technological advances that humans have created can help provide solutions. So, right here we have human created technology provides solutions. Okay, so that is the first step back from being self-centered. So this is still a very selfish point of view. Okay, now the next layer beyond that is what we call anthropocentric. So I'm going to go right here. So anthropocentric. Okay, the prefix anthro means human or man. All right, so in an anthropocentric worldview, humans are the ones who have to sustainably manage our global systems. So this puts more of the ownership on humans, that it's our responsibility to be stewards of the environment. Okay, so in our anthropocentric worldview, we're going to say that humans must manage our global systems. Okay, so how do we do that? How do we manage global systems? Well, we are already doing it right now. We have taxes and we have laws that help regulate these things. Okay, now when we take one more step back, our outermost layer is what we call ecocentric. Eco means world. Okay, so ecocentric is when people believe that ecology and nature are central to humanity. It's part of who we are. And this is a very, what should I say? Optimistic view, because it basically believes that humans can we can restrain ourselves with our behavior. And this is where we can tie in the spiritual and the environmental dimensions into one. So for ecocentric, we're going to put ecology and nature are central to humanity. Okay, and this believes that humans can restrain themselves. All right, so this is self-restraint. Okay, now, after you guys are done recording the notes, there is a discussion post where you're going to identify where you fall in the environmental value system. Are you self-centered? Are you technocentric? Are you anthropocentric? Are you ecocentric? And there is not a right or wrong answer here. I just want you to do some evaluation of yourself and give me a reason why you believe that way. All right. Now, I will say for the environmental value systems, and I love to point out stuff all the time that is going to pop up on your IB test. Okay. So I am going to, let's change the color. Sorry guys, give me a second. Right here, let's change the color to, what's something that can stand out? Let's just say neon pink. Okay. So the environmental value system, I always like to put like stars or highlight it or something. So this is definitely IB test material. I've seen questions on tests in the past where they give you a scenario and you have to specifically identify what value system it is. And you have to use these terms right here: ecocentric, anthropocentric, technocentric, or self-centered. Okay? All right. So let's scroll down here to our charts. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go back up here and change the color. Let's just do orange. Okay. So the goal of learning about this is to make choices that will allow us to become more sustainable. We don't want to use our resources faster than they can be replenished naturally. So right here in the middle of these three things, okay, this right here, this is sustainability. Sustainability. Okay, so our social issues, our environmental issues, and our economic issues, they all have to interact appropriately in order to have sustainability. Now, we know that we are not here yet. We are not living a sustainable life in the United States and other industrialized countries. And because of that, we see a lot of what we call environmental racism. Okay, now we know what racism is, but environmental racism basically is when people of lower incomes or minorities have an unequal exposure to environmental hazards. So typically if there's a landfill, if there is any type of chemicals or materials that are dumped, they're going to be dumping them in the lower socioeconomic areas, because traditionally they believe that people of lower incomes and minorities don't have the means to fight back. This right here, this can contribute to our environmental value systems. After we get through our Unit 1 test, we're going to start a project on environmental racism, and you're going to investigate some scenarios that have actually happened in the United States. Okay? So, environmental racism. This is when we have people of lower incomes and minorities have unequal exposure to environmental hazards. Okay, and again, the environmental racism can contribute to our environmental value systems. So our EVSs, that's environmental value system. Okay, so you guys get all these down. Let me know if you have any questions.